Hey everybody, it's Danielle White here from the Big Money Stylist podcast. I don't know if I'm supposed to say Danielle K. White. Like last week you gave me so much shit about not putting the K in there.
Well, this is what happens when you disrespectfully do not put the K in.
It sounds so formal to me, so I'm just going to go with, hey guys, it's Danielle White here. I want to say from DKW Styling, but this isn't about DKW Styling. This is the Big Money Stylist podcast. Last week we were number one. Woo!
No, not last week. Right now, literally today.
Currently
number one.
I'm assuming that we're like posting this next week, so I'm trying to foreshadow.
I got it.
I
Okay.
mean. Okay, so we are currently number one, and I plan on holding that spot for a bit. So I don't know about you.
Everybody's planning on holding this.
We are holding strong.
Coach Ani, are you holding this strong with this?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Coach Val, are you holding strong with this?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're sure?
Positive.
100% positive.
Sealed the deal.
Okay, good. Well,
committed.
I'm over here clicking the camera angles all over the place.
We have Ani. You guys have heard Ani last week.
Hello.
We have Miss Val. You heard Val last week.
Still here, guys.
And I do need another drum roll.
You know I need drum roll every single week. Let's go. Bring it to me. Bring it to me.
And introducing Mr. Garrett J. White.
Welcome. Welcome, my friends. I'm figuring out the camera angles here. If you're watching on it, I actually control the camera angles. They're all over the fucking place right now. But if you're not and you're listening to it, welcome to another episode here of the Big Money Stylist podcast. So second podcast where we are talking about every single week the troubling situation of what it is to be a modern slave. Slave as a stylist. Let me repeat that again. A slave. Now, we're going to define slave first on this, and we're going to come on over here to Coach Val. Coach Val, what do we mean by slavery as a stylist? Off you go.
You don't have freedom. You are a slave to the clients. You're a slave to other people's work schedules and their hours, and you're not having freedom. That's a slave. Working constantly.
Working constantly with no freedom. Let's come on over here to our other side and have a little talk with our Puerto Rican. Our little Puerto Riqueña. What do we got here for you? What is, Coach Ani, what is this idea of slavery?
Being a slave behind the chair, basically kind of just like what Val said, when a client calls, you answer and you go into the salon on your days off, you go in early, you stay late, you don't have any freedom to run your own life because these clients are completely running your life for you.
Danielle, we're coming to you. Do you remember, I know nowadays you don't tend to experience this so much because you've built an empire over the last decade. Go back to your slavery days. Back to slavery days. Describe what slavery as an artist feels like.
Well, before I start and say that, I will say that going into hair as a stylist, I wanted to make my own schedule. I became a stylist because I wanted that freedom. And ironically, a lot of stylists and a lot of entrepreneurs get in this weird game of slavery when the reason they went into business for themselves was to create freedom and space. So first off, I just want to open it up by saying that, like how ironic it is that we put ourselves into slavery. And then second, I just think, I forgot what you asked me specifically.
Specifically, as a stylist, what is it that causes an artist to be, a slave and go back to your slavery days?
I think speaking for like a hairstylist, you go to hair school and you learn all the tactics and the skills that you need to do hair, but you don't learn a lot of the business and the mindset that needs to be a part of being a hairstylist. So you just don't know any different, and you just kind of sell your soul to slavery because you don't know any different. And it's kind of in our industry, it's just kind of taught like you just take everything and like you work. Nobody really says like you work 12 hours, 10 hours. I don't know really who started that. I think for stylists, it was like the price point was kind of not where it needed to be. And so we would work. It would be hard to say no to money.
Right.
And so that's instead of being taught like, hey, why don't you value your time and set boundaries for yourself and how much you want to work? And when you get to that point where you can't fit any more people in or can't fit any more clients on, like that's when you raise your price. But instead we're like, well, it's okay. I'll just take more clients and I'll make those numbers. But what if you had like your goal of what numbers you wanted to make and the time you wanted to commit and you just stuck to that? But nobody teaches you that. Like
further than that, I think it was like imprinted in us that was how you measured your success.
Yeah.
If you were super busy and working 6 days a week and working 12-hour days, you were kind of bragging about that. Like, my fucking books are full. I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
No, I'm fucking dying. I am not living my dream. I am not living my best life.
But that's what you were. The artist has died. Coach Ani, what do you think about this?
Oh, it's the same. And that's the big thing, because I hear people, especially when they come to our classes, they're like, but I'm super busy. I work 6 days a week and I'm booked for 12 hours. I'm like, oh, is that what you really want? Is that the life you want? They're like, well, I'm like, you stuttered a lot when you said, yeah, I don't think that's the truth.
Well, they're like, it's like, I'm making such good money. And you're like, yeah, but
Are you though?
What
for
if
12-hour days?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you're like, what if you shift your perspective and you got off at 5 and you made more? Like, let's not brag about like hours and slavery. Let's like be smart about it.
I'm going to need you to hold on to your microphone so
Oh,
that when
sorry.
we move, no, you just hold on right here like this, like a
Okay.
handle. It's right here on the end. Nope. Wow, you're getting a
Sorry.
little sexual with that one. Hold it right there, and then you just move with it so that we get your beautiful voice
Okay.
on mic the whole
Hey,
time.
guys.
I like
Hey,
it.
guys.
Okay, so we're going to keep going then. We've beaten this slavery thing with like a dead horse. It's dead. We've been beating it, but it's an issue that we're going to deal with every day. So this is the problem that we're solving right now is that most stylists have been trained to be slaves. They've not been trained to be artists. And the artist inside of them begins to die because of what they're doing behind the chair. Now, we have another challenge we're going to identify again here at the beginning of the show, and then we're going to offer up some solutions today. And we're going to talk through a specific formula that will address one piece of it every single week. You've already heard the pilot. Now it's time to get after it. But the second piece here is a challenge on the front of the chair, which is most artists were not taught the game of business. And so they become a slave not only because of what they do behind the chair, but they also weren't taught much as a businesswoman or businessman. So Danielle, let me come to you. Define this one, what you saw and what you were taught in business and why so many artists end up staying as slaves because of the fact that they are, well, they are completely ignorant when it comes to anything about running a business.
We're not taught anything, to be honest with you. It's like you, wherever you're living dictates your pricing. Whatever your industry is doing dictates what you're doing. And that's just like the story in which we kind of tell ourselves that's where we're at. And for me, like speaking from my experience, what helped me like kind of shift my mindset there, I don't know if I share. I'm just going to share this quick story. I had moved from Utah to Arizona, and it was kind of a smaller town. And when I moved to Arizona, I was thinking I was going to charge more. I was like, this is my time to start over and start fresh, you know? And I got to the place I lived in Arizona was a lot smaller town than I was anticipating or even knew. And I kind of was asking what prices were and things like that. And people were telling me like what they were paying, and clients were coming to me and like, well, you can't charge this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry, but I moved here to start fresh. I'm like not going to charge that. Like I just hit this mind shift where I was like, no, I'm not going to charge that. And that's what kind of made me shift like, okay, I don't have to operate in these frames of what maybe my industry is teaching me. And maybe I need to go about business side, doing things a little bit differently. So I told myself I'm going to charge like more. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, if I want more, I'm going to have to figure out how to market to like get people to pay me this in my current area.
So business matters. And Coach Ani, I'm going to come to you on this one. What have you seen have, like when we talk about this business conversation, we talk about this business experience, what have you noticed as the great tragedy for artists who do not ultimately figure out how to master the front of the chair?
Oh, if you have no idea what your numbers are or how to work from front of the chair, you literally just get stuck. And it comes to a place where you're still working 12-hour days, you're still doing 6 days a week, and there really is no out. And then once you feel stuck, you start to actually hate your job, you hate your clients, and that's when they burn out and they eventually leave the entire industry because there was no light at the end of the tunnel for them. It was kind of just darkness the entire time. There was no happiness anymore in what they were doing, so they just bounce.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is to not have you bounce. Our goal is to have you stay in the industry, and not only stay in the industry, but also to dominate, which we've been watching happen with hundreds of individuals who have graduated from our Big Money Stylist courses. If you have not checked out Big Money Stylist, I'm going to encourage you to head to bigmoneystylist.com, where you can learn more about our 2-day and large group experiences that are happening here every month in 2018 and beyond. And you may be a candidate if you apply and get accepted to be part of a small group to participate with us every single month. We are sold out now for about 4 months, but we do have seats available still coming into the end of the spring. So we're going to jump into a different conversation now. We're going to move the problem away, and we're going to actually talk about the solution. But we're going to address this first by me explaining quickly the formula that we're going to discuss here. The formula that we're using is very simple. It starts with power, It's followed with production. Production is followed by profit, and profit is followed by protection. Now, we're going to first talk about this as a group, this formula, and then we're going to spend the rest of our time today talking about the first phase, which is power. But we're going to roll down. We're going to do a little definition game. A little definition game, if you will. A little definition game. And we're going to start first with Coach Val. Coach Val, power. Define this word. What is this power thing all about?
I feel like it's being an expert in something and standing and knowing what you're talking about, and then you're exuding a confidence that leads others and having like an influence over others. To me, that's power.
Danielle, keep rolling. Add to it. What do you got? Power.
I think power to me is kind of discovering your worth and just take it. Like when you discover your worth, you could take anything you're doing, whether it's hair or not hair, and you could be successful with it, I think.
Okay, perfect. Coach Ani, let's go. What do you got?
I think that as well. And then also giving yourself permission to come from that place and step up and not feel like you have to constantly reel yourself back in, defined by anybody's standards.
Beautifully put. So we have power outlined clearly for us at this point. Power itself, again, is a function of capacity. Your capacity. Most of the problems that you have inside of your business don't really come down to tactical shit. It comes down to the fact that you as an artist do not have the capacity to actually grow and change your business the way that you desire to. So there's a second word that comes into our formula here after power, and that word is production. Okay, this time we're going to start with Coach Ani. Coach Ani, give it to us. What does this word production mean to you?
Production to me is actually doing the work, because you can know what you have to do and not actually be willing to do it, but it's going forth, taking those steps and moving forward in your game plan and your goals.
Danielle, what are you going to add to this idea of production?
Production for me is just like moving forward. I say this all the time, but I hate being stagnant. If you're stagnant, you're not growing. And if you want to be a producer, you have to be willing to kind of let go and learn to figure stuff out. Even if you don't know what business really means, I just know that if you kind of commit to production and moving forward, that you'll figure it out along the way.
Beautiful. Coach Val, what do you got for us on the production?
Production's the actual doing that's supported by the power, the tactical stuff that you're actually doing.
Beautiful. So what you kind of segued there for me a second. Talk to me about what this means. What does this mean, this idea of power and production? Draw the correlation between these two, why power actually directly impacts production and how production is linked up to power.
Because once you have the power and you give yourself the permission to do something, then you actually will do the work. You're standing in your place of power, and now you're going to, whether it's marketing or get better at MBR or be a better parent, be a better wife, whatever it is like that you need to do, you have to come from that place of power. If you don't have a place of power and you're giving yourself permission, there's no tactics to do.
Well spoken. Danielle, we're going to move to another piece on this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
I was like, I don't think I can follow that up. You nailed it.
Yeah, she fucking nailed it. I'm not going to lie to you. She nailed it. This is why I said we're moving on. She nailed it. There was nothing else to deal with. There was like 14 nails stuck to the wall. This thing was done. All right. So, Danielle, let's come to you then. The word next is profit.
Profit. I feel like we're on a game show.
Yeah, it is. This is
The
like
word
welcome to.
I'm too nervous. I'm too nervous.
Can you please use it in a sentence for me? All right. So, profit. What are we talking about here? Profit. Profit, not prophet.
Profit. If you have to have profit. If you're just doing, I don't even know how to start this. Like, if you're not profitable, then what are you working towards? Like, I think there's this perception of people are like working towards something, but you need to do your numbers and find out if you're profitable to find out if what you're doing is working. Is that kind of where you're going? Like, I don't know. For me, profit is like results, like a manifestation of like what I'm doing and what I'm learning. Like, hey, I know who I am. I know my worth. I know my tactics. And now my profit is showing that I know that.
Val?
Results. Results that came from the power that gave you the tactics, and then now you have results, right?
Oh, shit. Ani, what would you add to this? Anything festering around in that amazing mind of yours as lead trainer of Natural Beauty Rose and Big Money Stylist?
Well, I think when people think profit, they immediately go to money, but it's more than just money. It's whatever, literally like whatever your end goal is, whatever you're working towards, that's what profit is. So if you want more time with your kids, or you want a better marriage, or you want to work 3 days a week instead of 6, whatever you're working towards, that's the profit you're seeing. I don't think there's ever an end goal. There's just a next stage that you reached.
All right. So we have we've covered the first three. We've got power. Power itself is capacity. Capacity to do what? To work, to do shit, to create things. That's production. Production then is followed up by profit, which is the ability to actually make money. It's the result that comes from the production inside of your business, or it could be the results inside of a client's hair with MBR. Okay, our last word is protection. Protection. Now, this is part of our formula, too. We're going to keep going with this. Coach Ani, I'm going to come to you. Protection, what are we talking about here?
So there's no real such thing. I don't think there's a such thing as being stagnant. Like if you're not moving forward, then you're just going backwards. If you took all of this time, you found your power, you got the tactics, you got your results, and now you're just going to give up and stay there, you're going to lose everything and you're just going to start going backwards. So you already reached your goal that you wanted. Now you have to protect everything you built, whether it be your family, your kids, your business. You have to protect that and keep moving forward, or you're just going to go back and lose it.
Danielle, what would you add to this protection idea? Thinking about what you've built, thinking about being a producer, thinking about profits. What's protection all about?
For me, like with my education, I know that people would learn from me, and I don't think I was protecting it. Like people were investing in me, but I wasn't like protecting what I had built and protecting my tribe. And now I'm like at a point with my business where I'm like, I bled into this so much. Like, you better believe I'm going to protect what I built. And it's not just about me. It's about others that believed in me and that were in my tribe. It was like, the protection came from not just, the only thing I can say is like, it wasn't about me. It was about protecting what I had built. And more than just me, it was about everybody else kind of in the tribe. I said that like 4 times. I guess I really wanted to.
I liked it.
We got it. Val, what do you got? What else you can add to this?
Yeah, I think being protective, like Ani was saying, everything that you built, and that way you are growing and moving forward. You're not staying stagnant, and you don't have to regress back and start over. You are protecting what you're doing, and then that you have your blinders on, and you can keep moving forward instead of like when you aren't protective of it, then you have to go back to that power struggle, production, all of that shit again. Just keep your blinders on, protect what you've built so you can stay with that momentum to keep moving forward.
And it's so much harder to actually have to go back and start again from the beginning. Well, it's just like working out. When you start working out, it's the fucking worst and you're 100% sure you're going to die. But once you're actually, I would know I'm doing that now, but once you keep going and you're actually in the momentum of you're waking up every day, you're going to the gym, you're doing yoga, whatever it is, it's easier to keep going. So when you get to the stage of protection, if you give up and you're like, I made it, I'm done, then you're going to have to start all over again back at power, and it's going to be 100 times harder.
Yep.
So we've got our formula. We're going to lay it down. We got power. Power is capacity. Capacity to do what? To do the work inside of production, which is to do the things necessary behind or in front of the chair to get paid, which leads to our third piece, which is profit, which is the result of doing the work. And then we come to our fourth piece, which is protecting the work and the results that we have actually built and sustaining that game moving forward. So we have power, we have production, we have profit, we have protection. So these are going to be our focuses. We're going to only focus on one. We'll have conversation about each one, but we're going to only focus on one here every single week on the show. This week, we're going to begin the conversation here on power. We're going to talk about power. We're going to talk about power. Why are we going to talk about power? Because it's the one that everybody doesn't want to talk about. And it's actually the biggest issue that goes on that we have witnessed firsthand in our organization, our tribe, but we've also noticed it out in the marketplaces because we noticed it inside of ourselves. So I'm going to come to you, Coach Val, on this one.
Goody.
Talk about what you have seen and like give us maybe some examples, some ideas on this with your life when it comes to power or lacking power and being able to do things, or having power and being able to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done at other times.
Yeah, power, even when you say that word, it still will make me like squirm because I'm like, I'm not a powerful woman, you know? And I think the very first time you said that to me, and I was like, it literally like puts knots in my stomach because I didn't see myself as that. But whatever, if you want to use another word for it, I'm strong, I'm this, those words make me a little more comfortable. But when you said like power, it would make me like revert back, and I would have to, Ani and I have had conversations about that where you're like, play small to not make people feel uncomfortable. But what was happening with that, I wasn't growing and I wasn't inspiring anyone else to grow. And as uncomfortable as it is for me, and I really like, you guys know that I'm not like a lover of the attention, the spotlight or anything. But when I stand in my power and I give myself permission to tell my story, to teach what I actually do know about MBR and business, and I do that and I share it, the the ripple effect of it is not only am I gaining confidence, I'm getting it back threefold from everyone else because someone else is relating to that story. And I stood in my power and they're like, well, if Val does that, like I could do that. And then the ripple effect of that is like amazing. And that's kind of like how I can get over things when it's uncomfortable for me, because the ripple effect of it, of how it's influencing others and giving them permission to do the same. Like, you're not have to be the bravest person in the world, but when you stand in your power and you own your shit and you give yourself permission, you grow, and like so many other people can level up with you, whether it's I'm working with Stylist or I come in at home and I stand in a position of power with Ryan. He fucking raises up every time, you know? So same thing with the friends that you keep. Like, it's taken me a long time to not like have to go back to like playing small, even like in friendships. It's like I had to like revert back, and I didn't want to say too much about all the success I was having at work because they're staying at home and not doing anything, you know? But I don't need to apologize for that shit. And when I do it, I've noticed the positive effect that comes from it. So even though that word makes me like squirmy, like power, no, I like it.
Danielle, what are you seeing from this? Because this is. I mean, Val is demonstrating exactly what we see happen. What are your thoughts on
Well,
this?
I was just thinking, like, as you were sharing, I'm like, it's so funny because there's so many times in life where, like, I don't like to be put in the spotlight, but the ripple effect, like you talked about, is so rewarding that it's like you're never like 100% comfortable, but you're like the ripple effect is so rewarding, I guess you could say, that you're like, I'm willing to be uncomfortable because I know the lives and the other people that it's affecting. And so I'm willing to go there, and it just kind of, like you said, it just, you have to like grow and learn and stand in your truth and your power. And that's how other people benefit from you, you know, and they learn and grow from you. And I always think to myself, I'm like, when I get stuck, you know, when I don't want to stand in my power, and when I'm just like beating myself up, this little voice always comes to me and is like, you're being fucking selfish. And I'm like, and I'm like,
damn you, voice.
Damn you, voice. You better
quiet down.
Stop it. You hire you or whatever is talking to me right now. Like, it's just that voice comes to me when I don't want to get uncomfortable. And then I'm like, no, never apologize for your success. Stand in your truth, stand in your power, and people will notice that. And you can't, when people are in integrity with who they are, it's like the people that are like, you feel like are not at your level anymore. They might be sad to see you go, but then they're like, good for you.
Yeah.
You know? So
power. We have this shrinking feeling that Coach Val has talked to us about, this change factor of I've actually done the work and I've grown and I've become something more, but I'm struggling a little bit to stay in power, maybe even at times, because of past relationships. Oh, that is called a segue. And we're going to come over to Coach Ani, because one of the hardest ways for an artist to grow comes down to his or her ability to deal with the inevitability of relationships and some of the struggles that come through that. So, Coach Ani, I know this is refreshing for you. So talk to us about what this might mean inside of relationships, and how actually staying in power, one of the most difficult things is relationships, and how those can actually take us out of power.
I myself this weekend just went through that. So I was dating with my fiance for 6.5 years, and I didn't realize, even until we actually started having this conversation, I feel like the more that we talk about it and more things start coming to light, that although I feel like I did hold the entire power in the relationship and the foundation was me, I feel like I lost power with myself, because I did know deep down that there were problems, and I was very willing to like push them away, because, you know, you make plans and 6.5 years in, you're like, fuck it, we're getting married, we're doing this. It's, you know, the wedding's paid for, it's been booked. But I realize now that I was letting too much other shit get in my way, and I was losing my power, and not even power in my business, because I feel like I do great with BMS and Inside NBR, but it was me. Like I was losing myself. I was losing my power in my life, and it was being dictated by something that I didn't want to fucking take over. So it took it took a lot to get to the point where I realized, like, this is super fucked up. This is not working. This is not going to end well. And I had to just kind of go through moments of clarity and realize, okay, these are the steps that need to be taken. And it wasn't easy by any means. It's hands down the hardest decision I ever made. But in that space and in that time where I found clarity and I knew I was making the right decision in ending my engagement, I found clarity in myself, and I feel like I took back power for my entire life. Like it was literally a weight that was lifted off my shoulder. I'm like, okay, I'm not dragging somebody along with me. No one else is making me go on whatever ride they're going on. This is my fucking show. I'm running it. This is how I'm doing it. This is how I'm living my life. And even now, like I feel so calm and clear about it because I took control back where I knew I needed it, and I was 100% losing it at that time. So gaining power isn't always just about like work and things like that. And other people, sometimes it comes back down to you. And if you feel like you're losing yourself, it could be that you're just losing power somewhere else in your own relationship, whether it be families or husbands, engagements, wives, whatever it is. You still have to stand as a person on your own. That's what I was losing, and I have that back now. So I feel like I stand right back in my power, assured of me and who I am and my goals and where I'm going.
Isn't it crazy when, like, on this journey, and I'm sure we've all experienced it, it's like we know where our heart is pulling us and where we need to go, and we know what needs to be done, and yet it is the scariest thing to remove yourself from either friends, family, religion, all these elements that tell you this is what you should be doing. This is your path. This is your fairy tale ending. This is what you do, and yet your heart is pulling you somewhere else.
In my head, it was dictated as so much of this is the path you should be on. You've been together for 6.5 years. You have your wedding planned and paid for. Like, this is just what you're supposed to do. This was the plan. So my head was going, well, if you end the engagement, it's either the best move you've ever made or the worst move you've ever made. You're either going to find someone who fits you like a glove. You're going to be alone and die a crazy cat. I'm allergic to cats. So I don't know. Die alone with a fish. I don't even like cats. So that's where my head was at. And I feel like I had to quiet down that voice that was like just playing tug of war inside of me, going back and forth between 100 different emotions until I dug deep, and the tiny little voice inside of me, that intuition, I say it's like your spidey sense. Like, you just know that little voice inside of me was telling me, like, you fucking know what to do. You already know what the path is, but it was pulling the trigger and giving myself power and permission to say, nope, this isn't going to work. Here's the path I'm taking.
Right.
So this challenge of being able to take this on in a powerful way, this is something, Val, you face in making a huge leap. And we talk about how individuals make moves inside of salons and they make moves inside of their businesses, but you and Coach Val both dropped your entire book of business. I mean, you went and you made a move to be able to be here part of this team. We talked about it a little bit here in the pilot episode about your story, but talk about what is it that goes on in your mind that's allowing you to be able to make these, what some would call insane moves, insane moves to continue to push and to go forward, knowing that your life right now is unrecognizable from what it was 2 years ago when I first met you. But what is it that goes on inside of you, and how do you continue to find as an artist the power to say no to clients, to walk away from an entire book of business, to start over again in a new salon, to make the moves with your family that you need to make? Like, give us a little more insight into that with you.
Definitely, like we always talk about that little voice. So that little voice is what led me here in the first place. And then just the commitment to it. And as soon as you do the commitment and start seeing results, and I saw results and my voice kept getting louder. That little voice is no longer a little voice. That voice screams in me every fucking day, we're doing epic shit!
Do dope shit!
And that's how I keep going. Like, I was very aware of that little voice, but I'm very aware of like small successes too. So when I would see a little glimmer of like confidence grow in me, when I would see a little glimmer of like Ryan look at me differently, when I would see like Danielle be proud of me, when I would see the bank account change. But yeah, definitely. I came here, I left my full book of business because I was a successful stylist working 6 days a week,
12 hours.
Slave. And everyone's like, you're going to just drop everything? Wait, you're going to go you're going to go back and assist? Excuse me? What? Like, everything was crazy. And even with our last move, Ryan was just talking about this with me the other day. He was like, remember when we were like barely making ends meet and you were making assistant salary and you're like, we're fucking moving. I need to be closer to the salon because I know more opportunities are going to be available and I need to be there in the drop of a hat. And he was like, and I was like, you're crazy. And I was like, just trust me on this shit. I know it doesn't make sense, but we all know about like my super senses. Shit's going to be good. I promise you. And he like luckily we've been together long enough and he supports me in that, but he was not happy. He's like, I wasn't looking to move. It didn't make logical sense, but there was that quiet thing in me that was getting louder and louder, and I had small results that kept me pushing. And between those two, now there's like nothing you'll throw at me. Not that it won't scare me, but I will always push forward because I believe in this shit.
Danielle, the Spidey sense game that Coach Val's talking about.
All women have it.
I know, like you do. It's your secret ninja power. So you have talk about this, because there were moments even with BMS, Big Money Stylist. And by the way, if you're still here with us on the show and you've not gone over and taken a moment to check out Big Money Stylist at bigmoneystylist.com, I'd encourage you to go over there and watch a short documentary, a movie that actually speaks to the results and possibility for artists just like you in being able to live not only not in the slave life, but be able to live free, work less, make more, 3 days a week, and make celebrity stylists pay without having to live in LA. We'd encourage you to head over to bigmoneystylist.com, watch the movie. If it feels like a fit for you, we'd love to have you apply to be one of our next students inside of the game with myself, Coach Val, Coach Ani, and Danielle at a next BMS event. So Danielle, come back though this idea of
our spidey
senses, because there's been many moments along the way where you've had to jump into the spidey sense.
And here's what I keep getting. It's so funny because I think, like I said, we kind of lead with our spidey sense is like being in tune with our heart. It's like you have your head and you have your heart. And it's so funny because for me, I've learned to I can't even say that word, differentiate between my head and my heart. Because oftentimes a decision that I need to make that's like throbbing in my heart, it doesn't make sense in my head. It doesn't. But I have learned to trust my heart, because when I make decisions based on my spidey sense or like listening to my heart, like they always follow through. Whereas like my head is a crapshoot. Like it's the same. I mean, it can't be trusted, but what can be trusted is my heart. And so I always try to kind of be present and in tune and listen to that. And I just know like when I jump all in that like it works. And what I find is interesting, and again, this could be it's for stylists, it's for not stylists, it's for everybody, but I feel like the scariest thing is when you decide to make that leap, those around you are like, well, you don't like it here? Well, what's wrong? You don't like it here?
Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, are you sure?
What if it doesn't work?
What if it, even close family members, parents, sisters, brothers, uncles, you know, it's scary, and you're like, nope, my spidey sense said it's true. So I have, but it's almost like, you're right, it's not going to work. I'll come back here where it's safe. And then that voice just keeps coming back. And so it's important to kind of like listen to that and not be scared and take that leap. And I know that when you take that leap, like you're more committed, and you'll kind of figure out what needs to be the next
sink
step.
or swim.
Yes. And then it becomes fun.
So we have this swimming is fun.
Yes, swimming is fun.
We've got this power that we've been discussing and how it links up to a couple different things. One, it links up to relationships and how sometimes relationships actually disempower us and we've got to let go. And then we have this other side of the equation of association, where we can actually gain power through who we associate with. So I'm gonna change the topic away from situations or relationships where we're like, fuck, this is not working out for me. My situation is not good. This relationship's not good. These clients are not what I want. This environment is not what I want. The city I'm in is not where I want to be. But we're going to talk about the other end of the spectrum, because we can talk about what takes away from power, but there's the other side, which is what actually adds to power. And it's the reason why the BMS Mastermind works and why over 140 artists currently meet with us every single week inside of our trainings and inside of our networks daily with myself and our trainers and coaches here. Because they're looking for something else. They're looking for an association factor of actually being around powerful people. So I'm going to actually start with this one with Coach Ani. We're going to come to you since you ended us on the game of your engagement ended and you're moving in a different direction that way. I appreciate you being so honest and vulnerable about that, particularly here now that thousands and thousands of people are going to end up hearing this podcast. Talk about how the opposites happen, though, and how being around Danielle, myself, Val, and the team here in Laguna, how being around the right people for you actually causes a bigger belief in yourself and actually access more power.
Well, I think one of the biggest things I realized is when I was in St. Louis, I rented my own studio, and the changes that I made within my business, they're not normal. They're crazy and they're insane. And honestly, everybody, I was frowned upon. And I was the person that they talked about, like, oh my God, did you see what she's doing? Can you believe she's doing this? And I know there was chatter, but that makes it hard, especially when you're standing completely on your own. So when I came here, even I said, just even the vibe inside the salon at DKW was so different. But then you see Danielle's work and Val's work and you're like, well, I want to get better. And then you start being around you and all the warriors and you're like, well, fuck, if they can do this, I want to do this. And it keeps you leveling up every single day. You don't want to be that person. I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest player. Nobody here wants to be the weakest player ever. So you're constantly pushing yourself, leveling yourself up. But it's such a great environment to be around because no one here is going to let you start sliding back. Even when people knew shit was going sideways within my relationship, everybody reached out to me and they're like, hey, I know it's fucking hard. If you need anything, I'm here. Or even things as simple as, why don't we start a game with meditating? If you don't meditate, you owe me $50 because they knew that I needed these things. But it's a constant push. And because you see other people growing, you want to grow with them. And then everybody starts rising together.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, what are you saying here? Power of association relationships. You had to walk away from
so
a
many
lot.
things. I didn't realize how much I walked away from, to be honest with you, until
Garrett made us count our friends on our hands.
Yes, pretty much. How many friends
We had 5.
five friends.
Like I got 5
4
or 6
people are in
friends
the room.
totally.
No, it's hard. I had like best friends and stuff that I just like family members like that just were like, why are you doing this? What are you doing? Like, it wasn't just like, hey, I'm not going to hang out with this group of friends anymore. Or it was literally like the culture and the belief system that I was raised with. I was in a place where it was like, you're fucking out. And I was like, oh my God, no. Like, it was like, it wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to like associate with a few new people. It's like, you're out. You cannot serve here. You need to go here. And I felt a lot of shame and guilt, like, let us save you, come back here. And I was like, my role is not there. My role is not there. I know that I'm a better person here. I know I'm growing more here. I know this is who I need to associate with, my 5 friends.
Love you, girl.
And what's cool, like, is we all kind of like grow together. And those who don't grow us, they don't work with us anymore.
Well, and even me moving here, because I moved here from Missouri. Do you know how many comments I got? They're like, oh, you know you're not going to get along with those California people, right? They're like, oh, are you going to turn into a bougie bitch being down there? Are you going to start buying expensive stuff? I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, I am actually, so get ready for that.
I had to tease Val all the time. I'm like, you're fucking bougie, own it.
Val, is this true? Have you become bougie?
A smidge, yeah.
It has finally been acknowledged.
You're like acknowledging it, and you're like, yeah, I am. Like,
That's right. That's
I'll
right.
have you know that someone made a rude comment about must be nice with your Beamer parked in the garage.
Nice.
And I was like taken aback for a minute, and then
you're
look
like,
at
yeah,
me.
it is nice.
Exactly. I was a part of me. If someone would have said that to me 2 months ago, even prior to convention, if someone would have said that to me, I would have
like,
gone
oh.
back and been and apologized, and I would have been like,
Yeah.
you know how I am. I'm not about material things. Like, it just, you know, our car had been paid off. It was getting old.
You'd be coming up with excuses.
But this time I was like, yeah, Ryan and I fucking work hard. And my car's name is Gladys. And I was like, Gladys treats me great. And that was that. Like, but even like 2 months ago, I wouldn't have said that. So
It's so easy to shame someone for success when it's so easy just to bring someone down as opposed to being like, good for fucking you,
But
man.
you know what?
in the go ahead.
It's important to like own your success. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what, like, he was saying, the power of association. Like,
Right.
I'm fiercely protective of, like, my family, my circle. And so what I'm doing, I never even share with friends or family. I
Right.
just do it. And they kind of know what I'm doing, but not really, because
Yeah.
I don't talk about it because I don't need their outside validation.
Right.
And associating with people who make me shrink back and apologize for my success is easy to, like, drop off.
Mm-hmm.
And then hanging out with you guys and the people in our team that make me grow. I don't want to be the one left behind. And I know we're constantly growing, so I'm going to fucking grow. That's the association I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of people who push me to grow, be a better version of myself. I know you guys aren't going to leave me behind, but I know I got to carry my own weight. And that's the association I want to be with, not people that feel better making me want to shrink back and not have like a contrast between the two of us. That's not the association I want.
You know what's interesting too is I find in myself is like I have a hard time like owning this success, almost like I'm not me anymore. And I have this fear of like, no, I'm a nice, grounded person. But you can still be you and a nice, grounded person and be successful and like own that you worked hard and have nice things. Nice things are part of experiencing life. The worst thing people tell me is like, I choose not to put my money there. I'm like, because you're fucking broke, okay? Like, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm like, I love how hard I've worked and I am okay with experiencing these things. But like you said, it's just like just being like cool with you and what you've accomplished and just like not boasting about it or not shrinking back and making up excuses or just be like, yes, thank you, you know?
And it's not even like you're not who you are anymore. It's as we grow, I feel like we just evolve. We're just not a new person, but we're just a new type. We're a new version of ourselves.
Right.
That's really all it is. That's why there's nothing wrong. That's why when I kept getting shit for being here in California, actually, guys, fun fact, I got a phone call from a friend who lives in Missouri. Haven't talked to her in a while. And she was like, oh, yeah, my clients all know about you. And they're like, oh, she really adapted to that California life, huh? I'm like, I think that was borderline insulting, but yeah, I did, guys. Oh, yeah.
This is not like something to be ashamed of. Yet somehow shame itself has become the conversation. Like this is what most individuals live in. They live and die in guilt and shame. Like their whole world. And most artists, which is crazy, and we're going to move to this topic of guilt and shame, because guilt and shame affects every human being that walks the planet. But for some reason, guilt and shame is a virus at the core for artists. Individuals in art and money. When you put art and money together, you watch artists go powerless over this topic of guilt and shame. And Danielle, I'm going to come to you on this topic, and then we're going to come to the other two. What are your thoughts on this? Why is it that this is such a struggle? Yeah, given everybody goes through it, but particularly for artists, and let's talk specific to hairstylists.
I'm just going to say guilt is something that it kind of just like knocks on the door to maybe remind you like, hey, don't live in this place. But it's also like, for me, I remember there was this point like with religion, with work, with clients, with whatever, that I was feeling so much guilt. And then one day I was like, I don't think that I'm supposed to be like, guilt is actually pulling me back and not pushing me forward. And I was like, I can't live in guilt. So what do I need to do to change guilt? And I found like, I need to change my story of what I'm telling myself. Like maybe the story might be like, hey, you can't do this, and if you do this, you're shamed or you're guilty or whatever. Maybe I need to change my story. Like, you can do this. It's okay. You don't have to associate with these people, or you can charge these prices, or you can do this, and just kind of change my story and not live in like in this guilt, because guilt is not a good thing. But I think that guilt is just, look at it as like a friendly reminder of like, hey, you don't want to be here. And I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Val, I mean, you were sitting in a situation with somebody who was trying to shame you for having cars. That's what they were trying to do. People do the same thing. You've heard me tell stories about my Ventador. You know, I'll pull up and people say the same shit to me. Like, they try to shame you for having success. People try to shame you for what how you dress, where you live. Mm-hmm. You know, you grew up and you created these results, and then there's a lot of people that try to shame you. So you obviously just faced this recently with the example you just gave. Somebody who's trying to shame you for producing. So what went on in your mind and in your heart as this was happening that made it different than what it was before? Like, why did you take a stand for the work and the production you've done versus going back down into the shrinking game, losing power, and maybe in that losing of the power actually affecting your ability to produce even bigger heading into the future? What are your thoughts on this?
Because I see what it does. I see when I shrink back and do that, then I have to start fucking all over again. And I'm not starting over again. I got this shit. So I'm doing stuff with such clarity, I feel like, at this moment. And it wasn't on a whim that I got that car. You know, I worked really hard, and it was something we talked about. And it was like a growth process for, I feel like, the team and your neighborhood,
yes.
my family. I mean, there's a lot of like details that go into that story, but I don't fucking have to explain that to anyone. I am definitely a person that I don't want, not that I don't want it, but I don't need the validation. If I feel good about what I'm doing, then I'm okay with that. So I can hush out that noise pretty fast. And I, instead of even just like letting it pass and let that snarky moment, I wanted to give a little jab back. Like, I'm fucking standing in my power for once, you know? And then I don't have to start over. So that the conversation went totally different, you know? I'm
so proud of you.
Yes.
Ani, what would you add to this? What would you add to this idea of, I mean, you You're a woman who takes a stand for your opinion and things, and with this comes shit talking, shame talking, wanting to make you feel ashamed. Though I'm sure there's people that want to make you feel ashamed for the decision you made here in the last week, for the decision to move out here, for the decision to choose MBR, for the decision to continue to move forward. Like, this has happened over and over and over again, where you have been willing to make really hard decisions, and people naturally shame those who make really hard decisions because they're so weak inside themselves to be able to make them. But how have you dealt with this inside of your world? Because one of the fastest ways we can lose power is to succumb to guilt and succumb to the fear of being shamed for wanting to produce more. What are your thoughts here?
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me is I know when I commit to something, I'm ruthlessly fucking committed. Like, and you guys have known that about me since day one. When I'm in, I'm all in and I'm going for it. So even when it came down to the decision to move to California, everything in my head was like, well, that's a terrible idea. You are giving up a house. You're moving away from your fiance, an entire book of business. You're making $20,000 a month and you're going to drop it.
Can't trust the head.
Yeah. And it's like, you're going to drop it and walk away. But my heart was like, yeah, do it. You should go.
Do it.
Think of what could happen. And then I was like, I talked about this earlier today in our training. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going to live. I might be under a pier. I hope Val will give me a bed. I don't know what's going on. But
I got you.
Thank you. But all I knew is I have to do it. So for me, because when I make a commitment and I make my choice and I'm committed to this, I'm all in. It's easy for me just to honestly put blinders on and say, fuck you. You don't like it. Get off my ride. I'm done with you. And this sounds terrible when it comes to like cutting out friends. I can do that so quickly because I know toxic people in your life will drag you down so hard and so fast that it is what it is. It's not that the decisions I've made are easy, but I'm confident in them that I made the correct decision for me in that time, in the place I was in, and I stand by it. Maybe 10 years down the road, I'll look back and be like, well, that was a shit show. Good for me. But it doesn't matter because I'm confident in what I did, and no one is ever going to make me feel bad for it. Not that they haven't tried. Trust me, they have. And I'm just like, well, you chose to be stuck in the life you're at. That's the choice. That's the life you want and choose to lead. Good for you. I want more for myself. And I've said, I have no idea who I'm going to be 6 months from now. I honestly don't. Garrett asked me once, he's like, who do you see yourself in 6 months? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Because we grow at such a rapid pace. I feel like even who I am now, I didn't see myself being this person a year from now. And if I'm already here, who fucking knows what's going to happen in 6 months? So I just keep the door open and say what comes. And every time I'm given a chance to rise and keep pushing, I do. So someone can try to guilt me and shame me, but I'm strong and confident in the decisions I've made and who I am. So you can try, but it's not going to be easy because nope.
I think you get to a place too with guilt and shame where if you feel it, you kind of, like I said, it's just a friendly knock, a friendly tap, like, hey, we're here. Like, no, I'm not going there, but thank you for the reminder. See you later.
Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So you're listening to this show, or you're watching it, or you're reading about it, and you're thinking a lot of things. But one of the things that you are likely thinking is, how do I gain this kind of certainty and confidence, particularly for our women who are in this, and again, some of our men who are following this program. And you're an artist, and it's easy to sit back and listen to Coach Val and Coach Ani and Danielle and listen to the power and the certainty that they're speaking with and to hear the fire, but you didn't get to see the other side. You know, sometimes one of the challenges that we run into as human beings is that we tend to compare who we are to the highlight reel of the people that we idolize or the individuals that we hear on the microphone or we see on the camera, and we think, well, this individual never actually went through the shit show. They didn't have to face the what I'm facing, and you create a trap for yourself and a disempowering game of actually not moving forward by creating the game of comparison. One of the beauties of the Big Money Stylist Mastermind and the Big Money Stylist Systems, which you can check out and learn more about at bigmoneystylist.com, is the simple fact that the game itself is a game of collaboration. It is competition with yourself and an ability for us to push you as an artist to a place that you've never been before, both behind the chair with a methodology known as Natural Beat of Rose and in the front of the chair with a methodology known as Big Money Stylist. But we're going to bring this to one final conversation here as a group, and it's going to be on this game of comparison. And the competitive nature of how this game plays out with tending to be, you girls are in an industry filled with beautiful pictures and beautiful people and Instagram and social media and Facebook and Snapchat and all of these places where women are being taught a certain thing about beauty. And as a stylist inside of it, you're women, you're also stylists, and you're in an industry where everything is about being beautiful and everything is about looking at what everyone else is doing. How do you guys deal with the disempowering game of constant comparison? Comparison with other people, even comparison with each other inside of the salon. And Val, I'm going to start with you because this would have been one of the easier things to do, which would have been throw yourself under the bus. I mean, you're coming in to be the wing woman of the queen of NBR, the founder of DKW Styling, and that could have been an easy game to devalue yourself. Yet now you're sitting in a situation where, you know, you're full up, your books are full, you're rocking the game as an artist, and you do it right next to Danielle with no threat of competition. Talk about how you have gone through, Danielle's trying to bump you. Talk about how you have been able to make this transition with yourself to go from, like, not get stuck in the trap of comparison to the point of paralysis.
The best thing Danielle ever told me was keep your blinders on. And I do have, like we've been talking about nonstop, the voice inside. So when I have that voice, I do have to put my blinders on. So I just put like hardcore boundaries on everything. So even if it's on Instagram, if it's not inspiring me on Instagram to grow and be better, I'm not following it. Because I can't. Because if I'm watching another stylist and that's making me feel bad and I'm doing the comparison game, that's not making me grow. It's not inspiring me. I'm doing the comparison game. I can't see it. Even like with friendships or, you know, like my Instagram, like I don't follow my friends on there, a couple, because I would get mad. I would get online, I would post a picture and I would see that they were like at home, and then I would kind of get like jealous, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And the guilt and shame would set in, like, I should be home with my kids. Why am I fucking working my ass off? Like, oh my God, I'm a horrible mother, you know? That wasn't helping me grow. So if it's not inspiring me and I'm comparing my life to anything else, I cut it out. I put the blinders on and I focus. And Danielle was inspiring me. That's why she didn't get cut out.
That's why you didn't get cut out. You didn't get blocked.
You made
I'm
it.
like, "No,
She's
you
what I
unfollowed
wanted.
me."
Like, I liked it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I like what she's all about. I like what she's doing. And it was inspiring me. And it was making me grow. It was making me get better at color. It was making me get better at cutting. It was making me get better at NBR. It was making me learn about business, stuff I had never done. Everything about her was inspiring. And that's why I stayed around. So if it's not inspiring me, I cut it out. I put my blinders on. And
That's beautiful.
That's how I don't do the comparison game, because I am who I am and that's cool and you do you. But if you're distracting me, I can't have you around.
That's beautiful. I mean, this cut 'em out strategy is a clean one, and it's easy on social media too. Like so many times people think you have to follow. You're like, I have to. Well, I turned on my social media. I have to consume the news and the shit that I'm seeing, when the truth is you can literally block, hide story, block the person, unfollow the person. I like to go the whole aggressive route. I'm new to the Instagram.
You are going pretty aggressive, but I like
block
it.
them, I unfollow them, and then I hide my story. I do all three. And then I send them an email and say, fuck you. I'm just kidding. I don't really do the email, but I do the other things. Okay, let's take the same topic, though. Val got us started down this in a beautiful way. This is a strategy you which she just doesn't follow individuals who are uninspiring to her. Ani, I'm going to come to you, and then Danielle, you will finish up today's show with you kind of taking this home for us. But what are you seeing here? How do you deal with the comparison game, and how have you managed to be able to continue to move forward, even though you slip into the game of comparison like we all do? But how has it become something a little more of an empowering game instead of a disempowering game for you?
Well, kind of like Val said and I said earlier, I can cut people out of my life really easy because I know that toxic energy just weighs me down and I feel people so deeply and so hard. I don't like that. But even what Val said, I easily could have come to DKW and been like, oh, fuck, I don't belong here. This place is crazy. Like, what is happening? I easily could have gone into that. But instead, I don't like to be like, well, they do this better, so mine must be shitty. I'm like, oh, wait. She cuts better. That means I can get better. So then I just watch and I hang out and I see where I can improve and where I can grow. So I don't, the comparison game is bad when you look at it negatively. But if you view someone, like Val said, as inspiration, then I think that's a really good thing because it makes you want to grow more. Now, if you're looking at it being like, well, she does it better, so that must mean mine's a piece of shit and I'm never going to do well, then you're fucked. Like, you're never going to get out of that hole. But then if ever I see people on like Instagram or social media where I'm like, oh God, theirs is so much better. I'm like, wait. I'm just very conscious of it, that I don't let myself take it to a negative place. I'm like, okay, it's just a place to grow. And I remind myself, my story, when people hear about me, like, oh, good for her, she lived to St. Louis, now she lives in Dana Point, Laguna, and their salon is B-side, her life must be nice. Fuck you. You have no idea what I've been through and the hard decisions I've had to make day in and day out to be where I am. And if I had to make these hard decisions, and just because I don't talk about it openly all the time, doesn't mean that they don't exist. So if I had to do it, I know someone else had to do it. So sometimes I just remind myself, I have my own story. Danielle has hers. Garrett has his. Val has hers. We all have a story that's pushed us to where we are. It doesn't mean our life was easy, but sometimes we just see highlights, and that's cool. But I just remind myself of that, and then I just look at it, instead of being like, if theirs is better than mine, I'm shitty. I'm just like, no, it's just inspiration. It's a push to be better. And I think you need that in life sometimes, because the minute you're like, I'm clearly the best. No, you're not. Like, have fun staying in the same place forever, because no one's ever the best at anything. You have to keep pushing and growing.
I'll share a quick story to finish up.
You got to bring it home.
I remember when I first started my brand, and I'm not going to lie, like, hair for me, I always felt like it clicked pretty good, and I always, like, felt like I could get clients in the door fairly easy, and I connected with people, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember, like, thinking, like, I'm pretty good at hair, you know, even though, like, my results, like, didn't, like, manifest that. I mean, it was, like, it was just kind of, like, it was like kind of in the beginning, I was just more of like, I always refer to it as like a hobbyist stylist. But anyways, I felt like I was pretty good at doing hair. And it was when I actually started comparing, like, this is when like social media came around with Instagram and Pinterest, and I started getting on there, and these beautiful pictures were popping up from other artists and hairstylists that had probably worked really hard to get to where they were at. And immediately, I'm not going to lie, I judged. I was like, I am totally that good.
I just don't want to post it.
I don't want to make that much money. Jesus. But, and I kind of had this arrogant, what I call the arrogant artist attitude about it. I was like, I'm totally good. But what I did is I became obsessed. I'd go back and I'd look at these photos, and I would start taking like my own photos. And I was like, the reality hit me, and I was like, shit, I'm not that good. Like, I'm not as good as I thought I was. And the comparison game turned into a positive thing for me. I wasn't like, what an asshole. I was like, God, I have a lot of respect, because I kind of thought I was good, but maybe I'm not that good. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And so I would constantly go back to remind me, like, the comparison was a reminder, like, hey, strive to continue to get better and stay in the know. But at the same time, if it negatively impacts you, or if people are sucking energy from you, or you're triggered, even if I'm triggered nowadays, like if somebody's posting something and I'm like, that's fucking inauthentic, and I'm triggered, and it probably has nothing to do with them.
Yeah,
like,
but still.
It's me. They're probably a really sweet girl, but I'm like, bitch, and I know, like, I know it's me, but I know that it's triggering me, and I don't want to feel that way, so I choose to unfollow and kind of use the comparison game to my advantage and not my disadvantage. So that's kind of my share and story to kind of sum it up. Comparison, guilt, these aren't necessarily bad tools to keep in your back pocket, but just keep yourself in check with them so that they're taking you the direction that your heart is telling you to go, that your spidey senses know you need to be.
I love it.
So that's kind of my closing statement.
That's a wonderful closing statement. All right. Welcome to the finale here of episode number 2. Our topic today has been the topic of power. We've been looking at the capacity issues that exist inside of your world when it comes to producing as an artist, and that some of the greatest issues you'll face have nothing to do with not knowing what to do, but ultimately having the power to do them. And today we've gotten great examples from Coach Val, Coach Ani, and Danielle down this line of this idea of how to access deeper levels of power, confidence, and certainty inside of yourself as an artist. Next week, we're going to be diving into the game of production, and we're going to come with a spicy, fun topic called being popular or getting paid. That will be the name of our show next week because there's a huge struggle that artists face all over the place once we've got power. How do I actually begin to turn that into production through my marketing, sales, and systems? I'm excited for us to have that conversation next week. But a couple reminders here as we wrap up this show. If you are not currently subscribed to the show, make sure that you're subscribed inside of iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Also, if you'd like to follow along with all the show notes, tips, and tricks here for this show, head on over to bigmoneystylistnow.com, where you can access all of the outtakes, the video, audio, and text here for today's show. And finally, our final invitation is to join us at a new upcoming event called the Big Money Stylist event. You can find out more at bigmoneystylist.com. We've been running events now for almost 2 years, with events as large as 170 and as intimate as down to 12. We would love to see if you are a fit to be part of our tribe and our family heading forward. If that's you, you know what to do. Head on over to bigmoneystylist.com now. So I'm going to bring this to a close. We're going to come to our final note here, not thoughts, but we're just going to go to final words here from each one of our trainers today. We're going to start with Coach Val. Coach Val, final words here on this idea of power as we sign off on this show.
Don't apologize for who you are. Play to the biggest version of yourself.
Danielle, bring it to us. What do you got?
Oh, God, that was so good, Val.
Yep, she just slammed it on you.
Amen. Ditto.
Say same.
Same. Woo!
Same. And let's come to Coach Ani. Coach Ani, what do you got?
Follow your spidey sense and just commit and go full force.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. This brings us to a conclusion here of episode number 2, the #1 podcast after our first week. And we're excited to have you there. Leave us a review and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.